I hear that our guest is ready, top of the show.
Really?
And of course, we would make way immediately, regardless of what we were doing, for the great Don Trump Jr., who is
What's going on,
with us.
guys?
There he is. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Yourself?
I'm doing good. I'm home because the Long Island Railroad is still a little screwed up to get into the city. I more so didn't want to get stuck in the city tonight if they had any delays on the railroad, because there is nowhere you want to be in New York City in August of 2020.
I don't even know where to look.
No, you definitely don't want. And since you're from Oyster Bay and it's the snooty place, they can cut down train service because I guess they figure everyone can take a helicopter or something like that, Anthony. So
Yeah,
You could have jumped on Billy Joel's. Yeah.
these are some seriously spoiled people there, Anthony. What the hell are you doing living there, Anthony?
I know. I've been faking it for so long. I got to get out of here and go back to Amityville or something. Great to see you, Don. I've been keeping tabs on you. You have a book coming out, Liberal Privilege. And this is exactly what needs to be said these days. I am so disgusted by what you say, liberal privilege. What we're seeing the media do, how they're handling Joe Biden, it isn't even considered kid gloves. I don't know what this is. It's like a baby in an old bassinet.
Do you do cocaine?
Yeah, it's like you're trying to escort a small child. Imagine just watching the way Biden's team treats Biden. Imagine him like in a room with President Xi of China. These people would eat this clown alive. It's a joke at this point. And so it was interesting, with the book, I was basically sitting at home from like mid-March on, basically in lockdown, and I was bored out of my freaking mind. I was like, man, like we're running against a guy that's been in Washington, D.C. as an elected official for 48 years. Think about that, Anthony. 48 years. If this freaking clown could fix anything, why didn't he do it already? Like, you think, you would have utilized the first half a century of your political career to actually maybe get something done, maybe effectuate some change. But now he has the solution. And I'm looking at this clown who literally cannot remember where he is 50% of the time, who's confusing his wife and his sister, who, literally needs a teleprompter to speak to a group of 10 people. Now, think about this for a second. Like, if you're a politician, you're basically speaking to groups of people every day. He's done it every day for 50 years. He was in elected office for a decade before I was born, and he needs a teleprompter? Like,
he can't
It would be sad if it wasn't so scary.
He cannot speak spontaneously. Everything he's reading off a prompter, and he's got his notes when he's supposedly taking questions from people. They have these little town halls where he's in his basement, and he doesn't even know a lot of times that they're recorded, that these people are pre-taped, and he's trying to ask the questions.
There is a rumor, though, that he's taking some improv classes at Upright Citizens Brigade, so I'm just saying.
That explains it.
It's so bad. I want to put together like a greatest hits compilation. The problem is it's everything. There's not a moment where there's even a little bit of like clarity.
No.
It's like he had the response to COVID-19. Now, if you had a 45-point response that was very detailed and in depth, and you forgot like point 29, okay, right. Like I'll give you the pass. He had a 2-point response, and about 30 seconds into his speech, he realized he has no idea where he's going. He's doing the little hand gesture, like, "Quick, help me out! I'm drowning here." I'm like, "You had 2 points. You had 3 months in your basement. You can't remember the 2 points that are the fundamental aspect of what you would have done."
Are the 2 points? Are the 2 points yes and no, because he can't seem to answer those questions either?
Those simple
questions.
And that's what's really scary, because no one believes that Joe Biden's going to be the guy in charge if the Democrats win, right? No. But that's the problem. Like, who are you voting for? You're voting for the thought leaders of the left, who are, AOC, Rashida Tlaib, the Hamas caucus. That's who you're. It's true. Come on, it's true. Let's stop pretending that these people are like even reasonable anymore. They are radical leftists. They are anti-Semites. They're able to do those things on the floor because of liberal privilege. we hear a lot about it. God knows I do. I'm the son of a wealthy guy. I know. I'm not allowed to have an opinion. I'm sure as hell not allowed to voice that kind of opinion. I'm not allowed to even speak because of my privilege. So we hear a lot about privilege, but no one ever talks about liberal privilege. So I literally wrote that book because I was bored, and I'm looking at this guy's track record. I'm looking every bad decision. I'm seeing Robert Gates, who was, by the way, Obama's Secretary of Defense, who in his autobiography, he said, Joe Biden has been on the wrong side of every decision of his entire long-ass career. I mean, that's Obama's people saying it, and this is the best they've got. Let's figure, 150 million Democrats in America, and that's the cream of the crop. I mean, that's scary stuff.
Maybe if they didn't spend the last 4 years trying to get your father thrown out of office with some of the biggest harebrained schemes I've ever seen. Maybe if they actually took that time to groom a candidate, a moderate, somebody that really loved the country. Why do that when you could spend time with the collusion hoaxes and the Ukraine hoaxes and trying to get tax information and all the nonsense that they have put your father through could have been much better spent actually serving the people instead of destroying a great run that this country was on up until 6 months ago, or not even 4 months ago.
Well, 100%, and that's the reality. I mean, Donald Trump made promises in 2016 like every other politician you've ever seen. But he actually delivered on those promises. I mean, there was literally not a single economic metric or otherwise, frankly, where we weren't better off under Trump with no experience, no political experience, none of those connections, none of that know-how, and yet he still got it done. And by the way, he did it despite, as you talk about, 3 years of Russia bullshit, impeachment. They spent 2 years trying to throw me in jail, attacking his family. He did it under unprecedented circumstances. So I keep talking about it. Imagine Donald Trump Jr. took $1.5 billion from the Chinese government, Hunter Biden did. In a typical fund, right? You get 2% management fee and 30% of the upside. The management fee is every year. 2% of 100.5 billion is 30 million a year. A year. To Hunter Biden. You think Joe Biden's going to be tough on China? Obviously, he's never done anything in China. He's never done anything in business. He's never accomplished a single thing. But he obviously should be paid $30 million because it definitely was not the Chinese government buying the Bidens. It definitely was not that.
Let me tell you something though, Don. The really screwed up thing here is, yes, they did it. They did all that. It's the media never questioning them. They don't question Joe Biden about it. He doesn't have to be accountable to anything he's done in his almost half century of work in politics. He could just go on and babble and ramble incoherently, and they will not question this.
Now, the media has spent more time scrutinizing my memes than they have Joe Biden's actual policy. His actual decisions. Good, bad, or indifferent. In his case, all bad. I mean, he literally created the rise of China economically with decades of pushing for them to be in the World Trade Organization, all these things. I mean, China, when Joe Biden started working for them, he should be running for president there, was literally in a country that had the economy the size of the Netherlands. Think about that. Now it's what it is.
But
now,
Don,
you think that Joe Biden's going to push back on these guys? I mean, he built them for his entire career. And even if Joe Biden's in charge, even if he wants to push back, he doesn't have the capability, and he's not going to be the guy pulling the purse strings anyway, because he's going to have 30 liberal, leftist, radical puppets, the people that you see on the news every day that can do no wrong, the things that they would, question us about, nonstop, just total liberal privilege pass. And again, it's why I wrote the book, because I'm sitting there being like, I had 4 months. I hired a researcher. I'm like, I can't believe there's so much out there, and you've heard none of it. I mean, Hunter's not the only one in the Biden family doing this. I mean, Joe's brother is getting billion-dollar contracts to build homes in Iraq. You know how many homes he built before he got that contract? Zero.
None. None.
Zero. He wasn't even in the business. Hey, it'd be one thing if you went to Pulte Homes and you said, okay, you guys have built 100,000 homes. Like, we want you to build up a thing. Okay. You know what? I'll give you a pass. Nothing.
This is like The Sopranos.
I know Joe Biden. hire me to work for your company. The next day they get a contract. Magically, everyone's making billions on the American taxpayer dime. And the media says nothing. They have no problem with it. You think I could we're home builders. We built buildings
Of course.
all over the place. You think that I could go to Iraq and be like, hey, just give me a couple $1 billion to build something. No problem. Don't question it.
I would love to see the Trump name, though, just on a big golden building in Iraq. That'd be awesome.
I think it could look great in the skyline. Amongst the rubble, it would be awesome.
Yeah, they don't seem to. It runs like the mafia. These no-show jobs and no work jobs. But it's been business as usual for so long that when your dad came in, like you said, inexperienced in the world of politics, but very experienced in the world of business, building, making sure you're turning a profit. These are things the politicians never had to worry about.
No, because it's other people's money. They don't care. It's why all these Democrat-run cities, they're like, hey, I'll just take the taxpayer money. I'll give everyone whatever they want. They'll vote for me. We'll perpetuate this cycle of failure. It's why the top 19 of the top 20, and it's and if you took it to the top 50, it's probably 49 of the top 50 of the major cities are Democrat controlled. They've been Democrat controlled for decades, in some cases for over a century. Then there's a riot, and it's Donald Trump's fault. I'm like, I don't know. I'm pretty sure they were killing people every weekend in Chicago for years before Donald Trump ever ran for office. Like, it's not Donald Trump's fault. Portland, well, they sent the National Guard in, and these people are stormtroopers. I go, well, they sent them in because you had 5 weeks of straight riots. No, they did it because of I go, you had riots for 5 weeks before those people ever got there. There's dozens of officers being put in the hospital every night. Like, they are reinforcements because you have lost control of your cities, and you're frankly, in many cases, encouraging these anarchists to burn things down while simultaneously lying to the American people on media. And the media is doing plenty of good work, covering their butts for the Democrats. Oh, no, they're peaceful protesters. Peaceful protesters don't burn down buildings.
Isn't that liberal privilege, though, also white privilege? Because let's be honest, those are the two whitest cities in the world while you're being called racist. It doesn't make any sense to me.
There's probably some truth to that, but that again, it doesn't matter, right? You can get away with whatever you want, and the media is going to cover for them. Yeah. And the media is going to, and that's the problem. I mean, despite the record of performance, the fact that Trump is a builder, the fact that Trump made promises, he delivered on those promises, he grew an economy. I mean, who do you want taking you out of this, this mess? The guy that's actually done it, or the guy who's been there for 50 years, who's you can't name an accomplishment. It's frankly a record of failure. But now he's going to magically do something different. He's going to come out of the woodwork. He can't remember where he is, but he's going to be our savior. I mean, if he's our savior, we got serious problems.
Well, if you can't steal money if you're properly spending taxpayers' money for the citizens. Dollars. That's the problem.
It really is astounding that they don't call Joe Biden out on these things. He says stuff like, oh, we're going to build back better. Whatever his slogan is, it's terrible. You'll never see that on a hat
shenanigans.
Or a shirt.
No more shenanigans.
He's going to take your taxpayer dollars to give illegals free health care, to give illegals free college and education, to give criminals free housing when they get out of jail. I mean, that's like an incentive. Like, I love free housing for the rest of my life. Like, go commit a crime, do a little bit of time, come out, we're going to give you free housing. I mean, it is the most ridiculous, and that shows you, Joe is no moderate, and B, he's totally not in control because this is Bernie Sanders' plan. And I'm not just saying this is probably what they'll do. It's on his website. He's not even pretending anymore. Now, I'm not sure he knows what's on his website because, in all fairness, look at him. But, be careful, guys, because when they tell you what they're going to do, and it's that insane, and it's on their website, they're going to try to do it. Yeah, they're going to try to do it, and it's going to destroy the American economy. It's going to destroy the American suburbs. You saw he's pushing that Cory Booker. Let's bring Newark everywhere else to literally destroy the American suburbs. Like, this is a wonderful plan. Let's let the failed major cities around beautiful suburbs, let's make sure that they're fully integrated, that the big city has total control of what's going on. Let's get rid of single-family zoning. What could possibly go wrong? Other than your houses are going to be worth about 2% of what they were worth yesterday when that gets enacted. Yeah. I'm sure it's a wonderful plan.
Well, and that's a way of saying the American middle class.
Correct. It's an attack on them to benefit those who are not even taxpayers. I mean, the reality is, hey, I'd love free healthcare. I'd love free housing. I'd love free college. He wants to give those things to illegals before Americans even get them. And that's the insanity of this plan. It's literally the American public has the privilege of spending, 30% of their take home to give other people a better American dream than Americans actually got. This is, in the history of politics, this is one of the stupidest things I've ever seen, and yet they're selling it with a straight face, and the media's like, this is a wonderful plan. Like, look at how great this is.
They constantly just, like I said, kid gloves. It's worse than kid gloves. But how about this? You have Biden saying that he's going to build America back even better, and his plan for that is to put restrictions back on the energy industry, stop fracking, stop offshore drilling. So we're back kneeling in front of OPEC again, instead of under your dad being the top exporter of fuel. We're fuel sufficient. We're self-sufficient. I was watching a movie the other night from the 90s, and they pull into a gas station. I'm like, gas is cheaper now than it was in this movie from 25 years ago. And it's only because of these restrictions. Now, how are you going to build the economy back while you're knocking down everything we need as far as energy goes to keep this economy rolling?
Well, the plan is a Green New Deal with another name on it, right? I mean, it's basically what it is. And it's not realistic. We're still going to need our energy. We're going to get that from Russia or Saudi if we're not doing it ourselves. They are not going to be as environmentally friendly, because trust me, they could care less, right? They'll do whatever they can to make some energy and to make a buck. So we can do it ourselves. Put American workers to work. Get good paying jobs for middle class, blue collar Americans. Be self-sufficient. That's not just economic policy. That's national security. Or we can get it from the guys that they spent 4 years saying are the enemy and the devil. Like, it's backwards thinking. But again, it's why I wrote the book, because you would think that someone who spent the last 4 years screaming about Russia would say, you know what? It's problematic that we would be giving up American jobs to import oil or gas from Russia, it doesn't make any sense. But again, you can get away with it. And, I encourage everyone to read the book, because I was shocked. I do this stuff every day. I mean, this is basically what I do at this point. And I was amazed how little I even knew about Joe Biden, his track record, and his history. So, before you go and vote, even if you're an independent, whatever, there's going to be Democrats that made it. Do yourself a favor. Do a little bit of homework. You can get it on my website. It'll be available elsewhere later on. It's just donjr.com, DONJR.com. And, you can get the book and you can see for yourself everything's cited. I literally have 27 pages of citations where this is coming out from him, going into Joe Biden's health, having 2 brain aneurysms, medical opinion from a former White House doctor, interviewing him about what that could possibly mean. It's so there's a lot in there. If we're going to give this guy the nuclear football, let's make sure we'd let him play Nintendo, because I don't know that we'd even do that at this point with Joe Biden.
John, did you see the clip from I think it was today or yesterday, where he lays into that newsman with the cocaine thing?
Oh, Don
His analogy
tweeted it.
made no sense. But back that up if you can, Garrett. His analogy made no sense.
If Donald Trump did it, he'd be a racist.
Of course,
he called a black reporter,
an African American.
What do we call you, a junkie? Why? Is it because he's black? That's obviously what he's going to be.
Also, that job might drug test. Let's be honest. There's a good chance that a corporate position might make you piss in a cup.
You know what the thing is? Here's why the analogy also makes no sense, even in a rational way. He says, "Why are you asking me if I should take a mental acuity test? What, did they ask you if you to take a cocaine test?" If the guy was sitting there grinding his teeth and tweaking out, you would say he should take a cocaine test. That's what Biden's doing as far as the mental acuity goes.
Even then, in this day and age, he should have a mound of cocaine like Scarface to ask that kind of a question.
Yeah, it's true.
Well, it's also not a reach when an individual that could be the president can't remember where he is 50% of the time. I mean, it's not like it happened once and fine, he mixed up Ohio and Iowa. Joe Biden could be in Florida and be like, it's wonderful here in Alaska today. It's kind of warm. I don't know what's going on. He has no idea. And don't forget, every television psychologist for the last 3 years has been on Donald Trump's unfit for office. He's on, But this guy can't remember his wife and his sister. He can't remember the office he's running for. He can't remember where he is. Like, no, that's totally normal. Like that.
I'll tell you something.
If the shoes were reversed, they'd say he's in the later stages of Alzheimer's and dementia and some other mental disease combined.
They talk about the 25th Amendment again.
Guy.
Yeah. They'd be like 25th Amendment. We got to get him out. The thing that amazes me about your dad is when you watch him at a rally or when he's giving a speech at the White House and he's naming people in the crowd and coming up on stage and speaking and people that are on his cabinet and everything. He knows everyone's name. I mean, he never misses. And some of the names, they're not that easy. He knows everyone he's talking to. Boom, that guy, his wife, this guy. And he's not looking down at notes. The mental acuity thing, by the way, I was laughing my ass off. I love your dad. When he was doing the person, woman, man, camera, television, I'm going, this is pure Trump. Like he did with Elizabeth Warren, pushing her into doing the DNA test, he's going to push Biden into having to do one of these tests and failing as miserably as she did.
He might be more competent than she is Indian.
Yes,
well, I don't know about barely, but yes. But think of this is the Democrat Party. They probably figured it out from the Elizabeth Warren thing because imagine this, 18 months ago you're Elizabeth Warren and you get trolled into taking a DNA test, but more importantly, you get the result and it says you're .000, whatever, like. Basically, somewhere within the last billion years, someone may have been, because it was maybe, right? May have been Native American. And they're looking at it and they're saying, wow, this is a win.
Let's run with this.
That'd be like Joe Biden, getting a 2 out of 100 on the mental acuity test and be like, look, it's a win. I took a test.
I got 2.
I have a feeling.
I know square.
Don't forget, Joe Biden 3 weeks ago, said, I have been tested a lot. I've been tested constantly. And now he's saying, well, I was never tested, so which one was it? Is he a liar or can he not remember? I imagine it's probably a combination of both. But 2 weeks ago, he said, and first of all, why would you need to take a cognitive test constantly? Unless you failed. Meaning, you take it once, you say, I'm good. If you're taking it constantly, it means you probably got a result you didn't want. Which should also be scary.
Exactly.
It should maybe be a little red flag going off in the air saying, guys, what the hell is going on here?
You know what? Another point I wanted to make about your dad and just what a qualified guy he is to be president at this time. Right now, we need Donald Trump in office. And let me tell you something. You spoke about, could you imagine Joe Biden in front of world leaders? He goes, everyone loves Joe Biden, all these world leaders. Of course they do. They could take advantage of him. They pay him off. He'll do whatever they want.
They're shaking his hand and stealing his wallet from the other hand, the other pocket. The problem is that's your money. Of course, you know why? All these people hate Trump. You know why? Because maybe he made the Germans pay their fair share of NATO, and he wasn't asking for more. He just said, I would like you to actually pay what you've agreed to pay for decades, but haven't been paying. That's outrageous, Mr. Trump. That's outrageous.
Exactly what they
Why would you ask us to pay what we actually owe? I mean, that'd be like me going to my bank and being like, listen, I got a mortgage. I'd like to pay about 80%. I don't want to really take care of it. And you should, it's asinine. And the world, and then the media goes, look, these world leaders can't stand Trump. It's like, I don't want world leaders to love me. I want them to respect me. They're going to respect me when you hold them to task. It's not my job to be their buddy. We're not in kindergarten. But that's the way these morons in D.C., the experts, they're experts. They haven't been right in 50 years. They haven't had a win in just as long. They've made every bad decision you could possibly make. They've allowed the rest of the world to take advantage of us. They've allowed China to steal our IP. They've allowed Germany and NATO to get away with not paying while we're freaking morons. We have the least to benefit, but we're paying for them to get protection from the Russians, right? Which Germany then signs a major oil and gas deal rather than getting it from
the Russians.
And then Germany said, no, we need you to pay more to protect us from them. I'm like, but you want protection from them, but you're giving them billions in economic deals. Like, how can you have it both ways?
Your dad is the only president that is calling these people out on this, and it's amazing. And it reminds me of something I want to ask you. I was watching a documentary called Fear City about the mafia involvement in Manhattan and the construction industry in the 70s, 80s, and into the 90s until Giuliani put the kibosh on all that. And your dad's name comes up in some of these tapes, not in a bad way, but in a way where they're actually complimenting him on his business and things like this. What it strikes me is during that time in New York City, your dad had to deal with literally the 5 families of the mob to get things built. You had to, in some way, have a communication with these murderers.
They ran the unions.
Isn't that the guy? And the unions. Isn't that the guy you want going in there and talking with the? Did he bail out on it? No.
I got you.
Yeah, sorry, isn't that the guy you want though, having to make deals around the world with these world leaders?
No, Anthony, I want the guy who's never done anything. I want the guy who's run for office hundreds of times without accomplishing anything. I want the guy who understands what should maybe work in theory, but has never actually done it. That's what I want. Of course. And that's why Donald Trump was successful, despite, again, taking more bullshit than any president in modern history, more lies, more deceit. By the way, now it's all out that it's all lies. Now no one has any interest in looking into it. I have no interest in figuring out what happened now. I go, wait, you mean now that you think it's the Obama administration spying on us, the Clinton campaign working with foreign nationals, now you're not interested anymore. I've never seen a media lose interest in the biggest scandal in American history
they
so
were
quickly
impeaching him.
Once they realized the narrative that they were running with was actually reversed, and it was the Democrats and the Obama administration and the Obama FBI director and the Obama vice president, Joe Biden, demasking people like myself 8 days prior to the inauguration of my father. I mean, this wasn't like, hey, we're looking into this 2 years in advance. It was like, well, what were you doing? I mean, they were literally setting you up.
They were lying about all kinds of things, like the fact that Joe Biden didn't know anything about this, and then he had to correct himself. Oh, yeah, I had heard about things. Constantly lying, this guy. His entire career has been a lie. I bet he had corn pop never even existed, for God's sake.
He was his coke dealer.
Yeah.
I have a feeling corn pop is a figment of Joe's imagination, like so many things.
Yeah.
Like lucidity is a figment of everyone's imagination.
Lucidity. Yeah, it really is pathetic to watch the media ignore all of these things that are going. Oh, you still there? No? Did he go?
He dropped.
Did he get cut off?
Did he
Dropped him? Oh man. Yeah, see if you can get him back. At least we'll tell him job well done. Plug his book, Liberal Privilege, which
should I go put on the Obama mask for when
my kids kept trying to call me. It cut off the Zoom, but
yeah, there is absolute liberal privilege. It's astounding to watch. If any journalist was worth anything, they would look into his business dealings. They look into this farce that was this collusion thing and the impeachment, and all of it turned out to be a lie. And your dad said it was a hoax right from the start, and they mocked him for saying it was a hoax. And now that, like you said, now that it is proven to be a hoax, they drop it, don't want to talk about it.
Nothing to see here, folks.
Bernstein of today.
Go back amongst your building. It's like the Leslie Nielsen thing, from like The Naked Gun, when the building. Nothing to see here, folks. Nothing to see here.
Fireworks.
It's crazy.
Do you feel that with the recent, if I can just ask, with the Epstein thing, that your dad's basically just been cleared on, so now they're completely ignoring it, and then they look at it, and Clinton visited 26 times just in the logs, which I've never even been to Arby's 26 times. Do you find it odd that they're just completely ignoring everything now about this entire thing, now that your dad's kind of been...
You mean, do I find it odd that it seems like a former president of the United States signed off of his Secret Service detail to be able to go to a pedophile's island?
Yes.
Yes, you know what? I find that remarkably odd. You know who didn't go to pedophile island?
Your dad.
Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And yet, when you look at whether it's the documentary, when you look at the media, when you look at social media, there's literally like two pictures of Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. Now, by the way, they're New York City billionaires, so the fact that they may have been in a room together at some point in time is sort of amazing.
It's always at a gala. Always at a gala,
as though they're best friends. No one talks about, we literally threw out Jeffrey Epstein 20 years ago from Mar-a-Lago, said don't come back because these allegations started arising. Meanwhile, they have no problem with like George Stephanopoulos having dinner with him like 2 years ago, after he was a convicted pedophile. Like, think about that, guys.
Yeah.
Think about that. But every picture you see, 50% of the pictures of Jeffrey Epstein are the same picture. It's like one, maybe two pictures of him and Donald Trump. I think they're at the same party from different angles. So they were together in a room once, and like, that's a big problem. Look, Donald Trump's obviously this, but like Clinton going to the island 20-something times, signing off from a Secret Service detail, because I imagine federal agents probably wouldn't take too kindly about, that kind of stuff. Who knows? I'm not saying
and that
he did anything, but man,
that painting, him in the dress with the reclining on a couch, dressed as a woman, it was at his island.
How about the witness statements? And you can see it. They're trying to. Well, how about Donald Trump? No, never saw him.
No,
never saw him.
Sorry.
How about Donald Trump? No, I don't know. But they just keep flashing the same picture over and over again to try to make the association, to make it seem like, well, this is okay. Donald is part of that group. It's nonsense. Like, and they literally will never say that it was a known thing that he was thrown out of Mar-a-Lago, told not to ever come back.
Yeah.
The biggest club in Palm Beach. We don't want you here because we know what you're doing. We're just staying the hell out of this thing. And that was way before he was ever even accused or certainly convicted of being a pedophile. Everyone else can hang out with him on vacation after he's done jail for child molestation. And it's like, oh, that's perfectly normal. This is great.
Right. Yeah.
And the news had all these stories and never ran with them. They just sat on these stories because, hey, he's got some powerful friends, and they were able to shut down the media on these stories. The media is the most despicable thing in this nation right now. And I mean, because, most of the people I see, Antifa, garbage people, they seem to be mental patients. I mean, they really seem to be mentally ill. The squad,
you have to be.
They're another bunch of nuts. But the media is just complicit in all of this. They lie. They are a propaganda wing of the radical left. And
that's all they are.
Who doesn't see this?
Well, I hope that everyone sees it. I mean, because they're going to literally give Joe Biden the equivalent of billions of dollars in free cover-up of his incompetence, of his mistakes, of decades of bad policy, of the fact that he's a puppet, of the fact that he's clearly not there. They will literally give him multi-billions dollars worth of cover-up. You advertising you couldn't pay for, and because they're no longer journalists, they're just left-wing activists. They've just said, hey, this is what we are. They've proven that over and over again for the last 4 years. We just got to listen. And I just hope that regular people who are consuming 5 or 10 minutes of news a day see through the bullshit and say, you know what? Like, even prior to COVID, I mean, 96% negative coverage when every minority group, better unemployment numbers than ever, more startup businesses, more of this, like, because he actually knows what he's doing, because he's actually done these things in the real world. And, no, that's still negative, terrible. I don't like the way he tweets. It's like, well, I don't know. You spent 3 years saying you're an agent of Russia and trying to put your family in jail. Maybe you'd be a little bit more aggressive than you'd like to be in other situations.
Every time Biden speaks, though, do you feel like it's a free campaign ad for you?
I do. It's why his campaign is so. It's why they're so careful about not letting him go anywhere, because it's like that's all I need to do. I mean, half my Instagram is just replaying Biden in his own words, because he's not there. So it's great, but like think about this. In the history of politics, not American politics, just in general, there has never been a campaign or a candidate who's thrilled that they cannot get in front of the American people. Like this is the greatest thing to ever happen to Joe Biden's campaign, because it's an excuse to keep him hidden in a basement, off of a microphone, away from sniffing children. I mean, it's the greatest thing in the world for the Biden campaign, because they can try to pretend to the American people like this guy's a normal guy instead of a whack job.
Have you seen the way that they will not talk about every one of these flubs? There's 40 minutes, a 40-minute video of him just going off and fumbling every single word he says. Well, there's probably a lot more, but it's 40 minutes straight. I watched it, and here's the thing: we can't afford, as a country, to feel sorry for this guy. Like I do. There are times I'm like, oh my God, I have totally family members that have Alzheimer's, but we can't. Our country depends on us saying, no, this guy is not fit to become president.
Correct. And if his family, whether it's the brother, the sister, or the son, if they hadn't spent their entire lives getting rich of his political, taxpayer-funded office and milking that, they'd have stepped in and had some decency and said, hey, guys, it's time. Joe, it's time. Go enjoy your life. He could be a great grandfather. He could be a great guy, I'm sure. He can't run the country. Come on, man. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But they can't do that because their entire careers, they've made millions, probably hundreds of millions of dollars off of this guy's taxpayer-funded office. So they need him to be relevant or the spigot is shut off. So they're out there. Next in line. You're right. It would be sad if it wasn't so scary for us as Americans.
Yeah,
because too much is at stake to be nice.
Everyone else, all these other politicians, the ones that have been there forever like him, and the other ones in the middle of the pyramid, because it's a big pyramid scam if you ask me, they still have to wait to get their cut. So they don't want to expose any of that. They're waiting for their business as usual. How did any of these guys make this much money in public service, in serving the American people? They come out multi-millionaires, and no one ever knows where this money came from.
Their kid's a billionaire.
Yeah, I like the saying, I want to see the tax return of the guy that went into politics being worth nothing and came out being worth a couple $100 million, much more than I want to see the tax return of a billionaire who got into politics with virtually no upside other than to fight for the American people. I mean, I'd be much more curious than that. I'm looking at the Obamas, they're worth, $400 million. I'm like, but wow, he was a community organizer. Where did this magically come from? Come on.
Because it's all based on graft and bribery and cronyism.
You take care of yourself. You make sure your DC swamp creature friends get lucky. They put you on the boards of their company. Everyone gets paid off. All the zip codes around DC are the richest and the fastest growing in the country. They don't produce anything. They don't hire anyone. They peddle influence. Amazing. That's all they do. And these guys, and that's why I say even with the Republicans, frankly, they're more concerned about protecting their institutions than they are about protecting the Constitution. Because they realize that everyone's on the take, and that's why I'm so psyched that there was an outsider like my dad who would come in and say, "Okay, we understand this is going to be bullshit, but someone's got to do something. Enough is enough."
Thank God, man. Don, you're great. We love having you on, man. You're always a treat to have on. How's Kimberly doing? Because I heard she had the COVID.
She got the COVID. Got on hydroxychloroquine the next day. And we literally never saw any symptoms. I mean,
unbelievable.
We stayed together the whole time I was with her. No symptoms, no nothing. She was fine. I didn't even get it. And I said, we didn't change anything in our lives. I was sort of thinking if I get it, maybe I build up the antibodies. I'll take my chances and I don't have to deal with this thing anymore. And she was great. So totally asymptomatic, and she's doing wonderful.
And I hear tell she's going to be doing the audiobook of Liberal Privilege. She's going to be reading.
She is. Listen, she was a great lawyer, and we're sitting there when we just, again, we had 4 months to sort of write this book and to research it and do all this stuff. And basically, before we sent it off to go to get printed, we're sitting there reading it just out loud. Does everything make sense? Are we making the point we want to make? Are we doing it? And she'd read 3 and not a not a not a stumble, not a mispronunciation. I was like, you nailed it. And the price is right too. So she was so good at it. I'm like, congratulations, you're reading the audiobook.
Yeah, it's tough, man. It's a tough thing to do. You don't realize when you're reading aloud how many times you do go or stutter on it, especially if you're Joe Biden. But it's not an easy thing to sit and read everything without one screw up. I know with my book, it took 2 days down in the studio.
It's a lot. It is not easy. Yeah. Literally would go 3 chapters without a mistake, and I'm like, man, congratulations.
Congrats. And then there's all those outtakes of, and when I decided to, son of a bitch. There's exactly. So much.
I'd be dropping F-bombs all day long.
Oh, yeah. All the time.
I feel bad. The editor would take months just getting rid of the expletives.
Yeah. Don, thanks so much for popping in. I know you're a busy guy. The book, you can get it. Where can you get Liberal Privilege?
You can go to my website. Right now, you can pre-order it, and even autographed copies you can pre-order on donjr.com, so donjr.com. It'll be available everywhere at probably early September, first week of September. It's going to be out. But if you want to pre-order it, you can do it there. Again, I turned down a big offer from a publisher to do it myself so that I could have my voice no editing. I have friends that are conservatives that their publishers like, well, you're getting a little aggressive. I was like, well, if they're getting a little aggressive, I'm getting a lot aggressive. And I'm just not going to be sort of silenced that way. So I sort of just took it upon myself to do it. I had the time because of the lockdowns, and I think it turned out good. And I think honestly, anyone who wants to really understand the Joe Biden that the media is hiding from you should read this book, because I took the time to do the research myself, since the media refuses to do their actual jobs.
Just fantastic, man. You're always great to talk to. Say hi to your dad. I'm a huge supporter, and
Appreciate it, buddy.
We'll talk to you soon, man. Be well.
We'll see you soon,
man.
guys. Be good.
There goes Don Jr. He's just a good egg. God, he's a good guy.